So Gavin Newsom's Reparations Task Force has a deadline of July 1st, and new estimates were just released on how much this would cost the California taxpayer, and the numbers are literally insane. Also, a potential legal argument against reparations. We're going to be talking about all this in today's video, you guys. Welcome back to the channel. Before we get started, make sure you join my locals community, jamesklug.locals.com. We have exclusive content. Check this out. Locals exclusive post-filming wrap-up. We're doing this after every single street video. Get my initial thoughts after every single street video on Locals, jamesklug.locals.com. Also, I think we just passed 500 members, and then we are on the way to about 30 monthly supporters. If you guys want to support the channel for as little as $5 a month, please head on over there. But it is free. If you'd like to join, it takes just seconds with the option of contributing monthly. jamesklug.locals.com. Check that out. You guys go join today. A lot of fun conversations and exclusive content happening over at the Locals community. So we have here an article from NBC News. Reparations for Black Californians could top $800 billion. $800 billion. So that's what they're estimating. So if you watched my recent video, we're talking about how much it would cost the California taxpayer, or let alone just taxpayers in general and who should pay for it, whatnot. California alone, they're looking at $800 billion. They go on to say, this is by the Associated Press, it could cost California more than $800 billion to compensate Black California residents for generations of over-policing, disproportionate incarceration, and housing discrimination. Economists have told a state panel considering reparations. The preliminary estimate is more than 2.5 times California's $300 billion annual budget. So they're just blowing out the budget completely for the entire state by 2.5 times. It does not include a recommended $1 million per older Black resident for health disparities that could have shortened their average lifespan. Nor does that figure count compensating people for property unjustly taken by the government or devaluing Black businesses, two other harms the task force says the state perpetuated. You know, California was not a state that openly was accepting of slavery, but this is obviously happening in the most left-wing state where any conversation around this could possibly even create a task force. Gavin Newsom, they created this task force after the death of St. Floyd. And, you know, this is very clearly just a way to make sure that he's getting the Black vote. I've mentioned this before, getting the Black vote on his side, whether it fails or not, because he's gearing up to run for president of the United States. This is just all politics here. The likelihood of them even paying this stuff out is incredibly low, but it doesn't matter. This is all just for that Black vote. Black residents may not receive cash payments anytime soon, if ever, because the state may never adopt the economist's calculations. Probably not. The Reparations Task Force is scheduled to discuss the numbers Wednesday today, and can vote to adopt the suggestions or come up with its own figures. The proposed number comes from a consulting team of 5 economists and policy experts. So a big question is, how on earth are they planning to pay for this? Or who do people think should pay for this, right? That was a question that we just asked in my recent video. Here are a couple of responses.
I don't know, I guess the government, taxpayers, why not?
Who do you think should pay for that?
The president?
The president?
Yeah.
That's probably a good idea.
Probably the president or something.
Cough
The
it up,
president of the
Joe.
United States?
Yeah. What do you think?
Cough it up, Joe Biden. Cough it up.
Who should pay for it?
Well, I don't really think reparations should be paid out at all, in my opinion. I never owned slaves. My ancestors got here early 1900s.
True.
So
The people who benefited from slavery should be able to pay for it.
people that benefited, so people that didn't benefit shouldn't pay, do we think?
No, if you didn't benefit, then why would you pay? But if you benefited, and most white people have benefited.
So direct beneficiaries of slavery are going to look, this is the bill for California. This is looking like the bill at probably a minimum for California alone. $800 billion. Do you seriously think that being able to find out direct beneficiaries of slavery could cover this bill? probably couldn't even cover the bill for one state. I mean, it's literally, it's insane, but people know that that's not how the conversation would have happen. It would just be going directly to taxpayers. I asked them just to figure out kind of what they thought, like who they thought should actually be paying for slavery. And of course, the responses are quite silly because people really want to stay away from saying that, oh, just taxpayers should. It's like, okay, are you a taxpayer? You should pay for it? I think one thing that's also being ignored as well is the divide that this would cause, not only among Americans, but also among the black community. If certain people are getting paid out in certain communities and other people aren't, how would that not cause insane divide within communities, let alone the nation as a whole? Going back to this article, though, for those, it goes on to say, for those who support reparations, the staggering $800 billion amount economists suggest underscores the long-lasting harm Black Americans have endured. This is obviously a left-leaning article. Even in a state that never officially endorsed slavery, critics pin their opposition partly on the fact that California was never a slave state and say current taxpayers should not be responsible for damage linked to events that germinated hundreds of years ago. Task Force reparations are just the start because ultimate authority rests with the state assembly, Senate, and governor. Now, is this even constitutional? We have an article here from Daily Caller written by Brianna Lyman. And it says, Lyman, here's why your we deserve reparations argument is BS. Something I wanted to point out is Lyman focuses heavily on whether or not it's even legal, which is a fantastic, I mean, tabling the moral argument of the whole thing and the potential consequences for getting, an entire black community in California or the United States basically a bunch of cash to where they're no longer working. You would ultimately end up devastating those communities because of that down the road. People need to work. People absolutely need to work. There needs to be that drive. And you completely eliminate that drive within specific communities, you will literally nuke that community. But she says, as it turns out, the Supreme Court and Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals have weighed in on very similar issues. And unfortunately for liberals desperate to buy the black vote with payouts, the courts don't seem poised to accept any argument in support of reparations. The Supreme Court, along with lower courts, has consistently ruled that entitlements like reparations are only permissible to remedy discrimination that takes place by the government providing the special treatment. So, for example, she goes on, the government of 1865, when they abolished slavery, the government of 1865 was responsible for slavery and therefore would have been responsible for reparations. The government of 2023 is not responsible for slavery and therefore not responsible for reparations. Now, she brings up a couple examples of what she's talking about, and I'll make sure to leave a link in the description below so you guys can check out this article, because I think she brings up a fantastic point right here. Aside from the moral argument, or the argument of reparations just in and of itself, she's focusing on whether or not it's even legal, and it's likely not. Well, it's pretty obviously not. The first example that she provides, the city of Richmond, and I'll give just one example. We won't go through both of them because you guys will get the point. But the city of Richmond had a black population of approximately 50% in 1983, with Richmond officials determining that local, state, and national patterns of discriminations created disproportionate access to contracts for black-owned businesses. In order to remedy this discrepancy, the city of Richmond set a goal which 30% of the city's construction contracts would be given to black-owned businesses. Now, the J.A. Crozan Company, whatever, which lost its contract because the city mandated 30% of contracts be given to black-owned businesses, sued, and the case known as City of Richmond versus J.A. made its way to the Supreme Court. The High Court ruled that past societal discrimination alone was not enough to discriminate against white contractors. They go on to say, quote, to accept Richmond's claim that past societal discrimination alone can serve as the basis for rigid racial preferences would be to open the door to competing claims for remedial relief for every disadvantaged group. So basically, if they open that door, it would be nonstop free money for basically every Irish, Japanese, Italians, like everyone. And it would be a complete disaster. And this is totally fair because the people today did not discriminate against those people. And same with the descendants of slaves or these people that were discriminated against. Descendants of slaves are making these arguments, but their family members weren't slaves, obviously. They weren't slaves, of course. Their parents weren't slaves. Their grandparents weren't slaves. Their great-grandparents weren't slaves. This really comes down to creating excuses for where a community is at today. Of course, there are consequences to having, let's say, your parents were growing up with Jim Crow, or your grandparents were in that area of being seriously discriminated against. That's obviously horrible, but today, when it comes to what you can do about it today, to make sure that there's nothing holding you back at all, you can't point to a policy as a person of color that is holding you back. Now, there's, of course, policies when it comes to left-wing kind of social policies that are probably having an effect on the black community, of course. Or school choice you could point to as one of them, where people are locked in their communities having to send their kids to crappy schools. But that's just people trying to, that's just bad left-wing policy, obviously. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this. This is a very interesting article. I'll make sure to pin it down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about California's $800 billion estimate for their reparations. Now, I know a lot of people are just going to be commenting down below saying it's not going to happen. However, they're pushing for something. And if there are loopholes within the law, these people are sneaky. They will try to get past any loopholes that they possibly can. They'll probably start distancing themselves from the slavery argument just because that's less effective than them pointing to maybe Jim Crow or something like that. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. And also, if you guys watched the recent video, let me know what you thought about that one. We'll be going over this more in depth, I think, tomorrow, Thursday, on a live stream. We'll be doing a live reaction. If not this week, we'll do it next week. But you guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I will catch you in the next video.